Hi, welcome back to the Facebook Live Lighthouse Addictions topic show. My name is Joan. I am your host for today, and today we are talking about intensive outpatient treatment. In our own facility, we typically call it phase 2, but it's pretty much the equivalent. And I'm really happy to introduce our friend Carlos, and he's here to talk a little bit about it. Would you want to introduce yourself and talk about your position here?
Sure.
Okay.
Greetings, my name's Carlos R. I'm a treatment technician here at the Lighthouse. So pretty much what I do is make sure the clients have everything they need. I make sure that they go to their groups on time. I facilitate whatever little chores that they need to be doing at any time that they need to be doing them, usually in the morning. Sometimes when I work late, I make sure they're in bed on time, make sure that they're at checkout on time, make sure that that all their rooms are clean, their beds are made in the morning. I also oversee them taking their medications and write it in the log to make sure everything's on the up and up. And also part of our job is making sure that whatever medications they're taking are logged into the computer correctly and into our central log, so that way everything's being monitored, and we're protecting our clients from really doing anything that they might
Nice.
take advantage of a little bit.
Cool. And I also know that you work in we call it phase 2, but like I was saying, it's very similar to intensive outpatient, in which it's a transitional portion of our treatment. So what I mean by transitional is that they go into residential treatment typically after a detox, and then they go into our phase 2 or IOP, and that's where they learn life skills. That's where they start preparing for discharge. So that's why we call it the transitional period before they leave. So I understand that that's where you work, right?
Correct, yes.
And could you tell us a little bit about what a day looks like in IOP treatment or
Sure.
phase 2?
So on a typical day, they would wake up is it's pretty much the same as in treatment. We give them a wake-up call at 6. They go eat breakfast before 7 p.m. And that gives them time to take a shower, make their beds, and clean up their space. So by 8 o'clock, they do a check-in with the morning staff. After check-in, they either go to the gym right away, or they do a big book study, depending on the day. They usually flip-flops, either one or the other. So let's say they go to the gym right after check-in. When they get back, they do a book study. Then they go and eat lunch, and after that, they go to our clinic down the street, which they have their own group sessions with their therapists and their counselors as well. So it is kind of like an outpatient rehab style of setting over there. Instead of being in group on facility, they are transported by our drivers over there. So while over there, they get to see their counselors one-on-one and their therapists one-on-one, and they stay there for a few hours, and then I'll usually get here around 3 because I work swing shifts. So I'll prepare everything for the day, for the rest of the day. When I get here, do a room check, to make sure everything's good. Once they get here, I usually greet them at the van, and we sit down, we take vitals together. If there's anybody who hasn't UA'd, I get that taken care of right away. After that, there's a little downtime where they start up dinner around 4:30, 5 o'clock. After that dinner, they either go to a panel here that is either alumni or hospitals and institutions, so we call it in AA and NA, where certain people that are in recovery come down here and then share their experience, strength, and hope. Though that's on certain days. If not, they go to an outside meeting that they're transported by staff or myself if they need extra staff. And we do that. They get back, and we do checkout. And lights out is at 10 p.m. And usually by 11 they're in bed and in their units. And that typically is what a day in IOP consists of.
Very nice. Sounds like a full and busy day. What do you think is the difference between like a residential treatment schedule and IOP
Um, the difference before it used to be kind of like where they were on their, as far as waking up, they would kind of be on their own schedule, and it's not something where it's trying to be lenient. It's kind of something more where we're trying to incorporate outside outside life kind of things, like being responsible for waking yourself up at a certain time so you can be somewhere at a certain time, like in the outside a job or school or a meeting per se. Here, since we have check-in, they do have to be there at a certain time, and now we incorporate a wake-up call just because they need to go eat breakfast on a separate side, and I think it's kind of good. I mean, it's still, it's still kind of, they still kind of got to deal with it on their own, but at the same time, it gives them kind of a motivation to actually get up on their own and do their own thing. And, I think it's worked out great. Also, another big difference is like IOP is like we're trying to prepare them for life on the outside. Like this is like their last few days here, few weeks here, depending on how long they're staying. And, we as, treatment technicians that work on that side, we try to, give the clients good advice. We try to kind of steer them towards maybe certain residents where they're looking at to stay after treatment. There's a few guys that they try to look for jobs, which personally I feel is very important because
right. To have something in place already.
Yeah, something in place or in the works, because when you get out there, sober living, which is usually the case, you don't have very much time to come up with your rent and everything. So, I think that's a good idea that, implement that little by little. So it's just kind of really just preparation to go out there and kind of maintain what we got going on here and taking what they learn here and applying it to the outside. And then, taking the going to the meetings and the groups and the being supportive of each other and applying that outside. And there's a great emphasis on that.
Good. And what advice would you tell a client who was in IOP or phase 2 that was going to be discharging like within the next couple of days? What does that conversation look like?
Well, I always tell my clients, and just like I tell my sponsees or anybody who ever asks me for any advice, I always tell them to take it easy and kind of one day at a time kind of thing, and to just kind of give themselves a break. In the years that I've been around, I've noticed people when they first get out of rehab, they go head on, full steam ahead, and that's great, if you can handle it. But I feel sometimes I get overwhelmed, and one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden you're like trying to get back in here again, and I believe that everybody's got their own steady pace that they need to work on, and it's kind of finding a good balance between, you got to be going to your meetings and you got to be doing your steps, but you also got to do it at a pace where you're comfortable and you're not overwhelming yourself, and there's balance.
And you're also practicing self-care at the same time.
Absolutely, yes.
Good. And what advice would you give somebody who is currently active in their addiction or seeking treatment?
I've never been a big believer of like trying to force someone to do it.
Right.
Because
when they're ready, they're ready.
Yeah, I've always been kind of like, when you're ready, you got to come here, but you got to take it real seriously. I think even if they're not ready, at least it's like kind of planting a seed. My advice to someone out there is like, really, really assess where you are in life right now and what you're doing, and if this is something that you think might be beneficial to your well-being, whether physically, mentally, or spiritually. 9 times out of 10, if you look at yourself very honestly, you're going to see that it's very, very contradictory to any of that, to any of those values. And maybe they might not come, maybe they might not seek recovery right away, but at least it'll get them thinking about it.
Right.
And that way, eventually, if it's not too late, they get in. But some people, we do have to lead them to water and make them drink, and that's okay. Everybody's different. Some people do need the tough love approach, and some people need someone there to guide them every step of the way, holding their hand until they're ready to go, just kind of like riding a bike.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and I just wanted to thank you all for watching, and I wanted to also remind you that we are here every Thursday at 3 p.m. on Facebook.com/Lighthouse Treatment. So if you're ever interested in learning more about recovery, alcoholism, addiction, and treatment, then please tune in. Thanks so much, and see you next week.